Hello, I'm Penny Thornton and I'm talking astrology. On this video, I'm taking the new moon in Aquarius on the 21st of January at 20:54 UTC. You can figure out where it's happening in your time zone from that point. And I'm also going to be talking about everything else that's going on at the time because that new moon is in a setting. It's coming at a time when there are lots of other very interesting configurations. Now, of course, we can never see the new moon. And the reason we can't see the new moon is that the moon is in between Earth and the sun. And of course, it's not reflecting the sun's light. We've got its dark face, as it were, to us. But it is marking, a new moon is the conjunction of the sun and the moon. They're occupying the same degree of the zodiac. And always at new moon, we think about new beginnings. Now, this is, to me, rather interesting and special new moon, coming as it does on the 21st, right at the very, very beginning of Aquarius. And it's at this time of year in the Northern Hemisphere, especially if you're quite far north, where, you know, I'm quite far north, we start to recognize that the days are lengthening a bit. We've got more sunlight. And I call this new moon, or I've got a little kind of phrase about it, that it's a celebration of the light. And maybe we should think about that in the bigger context of this new moon, but also as a metaphor. This idea of a celebration of the light. It's everything that is light that overcomes darkness. And I think it's very appropriate at this particular time. In fact, about 4 or 5 years ago, when I was up in the Arctic Circle at a place called Kirkenes in Norway, they celebrate January the 17th. Actually, that's a couple of days before Aquarius comes in, because it's the first moment of the year you get some sunlight just appearing above the mountain. And the days are therefore getting longer. We're tilted more towards the sun, and they will lengthen out from there. And I feel the same. Around about the 17th of January, I start thinking light, more light. How good is that? But before I get any further on the new moon in Aquarius, I just want to thank all of you for your comments. I'm quite overwhelmed with the feedback you give me, and it's very warming and really encouraging. And I don't always get to reply immediately to some of your questions or points you raise because of the amount of work I have to do, but I do read every single one of them, and I'm just incredibly warmed by it, and thank you very much. Okay, so back to the new moon in Aquarius. Let's start really, though, by thinking about Aquarius as a sign. The sun heads into Aquarius on the 20th of January, the day before the new moon, and it actually does that at 8:31 in the morning, UTC. So if you have babies born before 8:31 in the morning, or whatever that translates in your time zone, then it'll be a Capricorn, and just after that it'll be an Aquarian, just for the record. So Aquarius is often mistakenly thought to be a water sign, and the reason for that is that its symbol, the man pouring water out of an urn, well, that water isn't water at all, it's ether, the kind of stuff of the gods, if you like. And that does give us a clue about Aquarius, that Aquarius isn't always concerned with things like water and things of an earthly nature. It's with the gods. It's always looking beyond, seeing beyond. It is an air sign, and like the other two air signs, Gemini and Aquarius, it's concerned with concepts and with ideas, the exchange of information, curiosity, knowledge, the world. But particularly with Aquarius, it's the world beyond our world. You know, how far can you push the envelope? You know, what lies beyond there? Why is that happening? It's quite a scientific sign. And even if you're an Aquarian and you don't think, oh, I'm not really scientific, you do want explanations. You want to know why things work that way and how that happened. Very Aquarian. It's also a fixed sign, and that's interesting because all the fixed signs really like to have a lot of control And Aquarius likes to be in control, whether it's control of its own life, and occasionally sometimes in control of other people and other situations. That's just being fixed. You need to have your fingers on everything. But also this fixity with Aquarius means that although it's an air sign, and air signs traditionally are all about the flow of ideas and concepts and the freedom of thought and the freedom of speech, all of that, but because Aquarius is a fixed sign, it's a little bit tighter than that. So Aquarians quite like their thoughts in boxes and can be very attached to their opinions and their discoveries and their beliefs. And if you ever tried to budge an Aquarian from their opinion, you know what a hard job it is. I mean, they appear very open. That's the that's the rather wonderful thing. It seems like you're talking to someone who's very flexible, but in fact, not at all. But then the Aquarians like to have structures that support all those ideas and beliefs. And this is very reflective of the Saturn rulership of Aquarius. Now, Saturn is the old ruler of Aquarius, Uranus, the modern ruler. And in many ways, we feel Uranus is a much better fit with Aquarius than, Saturn, because how interested Aquarians are in what goes beyond, in science, in breakthroughs, in alternative thoughts, humanitarian stuff, bigger picture. That's very much Aquarius, and it fits with Uranus. But if you remember a little minute ago, I talked about Aquarians liking things in boxes. And Saturn, of course, is all about structure. It's all about reality. And again, when we think about science, yes, science needs imaginative leaps, but it then needs to support those imaginative leaps with solid principles. So again, we see how this particular sign and its two rulers go well with one another. But importantly, around this time, as we have the new moon in Aquarius on the 21st, Uranus, the modern ruler of Aquarius, is turning stationary direct. And whenever a planet is stationary, it's kind of got a souped-up effect. It's super powerful. So we notice all sorts of things that are Uranian in essence being much more prevalent. So if we think about revolutions, revolutionary thought, that's Aquarius. And what's interesting here, and has been really since we got Saturn in Aquarius, Jupiter in Aquarius, and now Pluto coming into Aquarius in March, that we are beginning to break barriers. We're seeing new worlds, that we're creating new worlds. And on the Christmas Day 2021, the James Webb Space Telescope was launched. And last year, we were getting fabulous images of deep space. I mean, it was revolutionizing the scientific view of space. And I believe when we see this new moon and Uranus stationary direct, that shortly thereafter, we're going to be having some amazing kind of discoveries and breakthroughs. So that's the good part. But also revolution means revolution, and sometimes revolutions are bloody affairs. So we could be seeing this as a time of protests, new protests. And when you think of what we've been through really towards the end of 2022, so many strikes across the world, so many people protesting about this, that, and the other. And it is a time when people want change, and Aquarius, Uranus is all about change. So the cry for liberty, for big change, is going to be long and loud around this time of the new moon. So I'm going to waste no more time. We're going to have a look at what this new moon looks like in terms of the horoscope and whatever else is going on around it. So I have taken this new moon from the perspective of Dallas in Texas. And one of the reasons I did this is that it gives us a beautiful picture of the cosmos at the time. You can see everything very clearly. All the planetary bodies are above the Earth, which means they can be seen, they're visible, it's daytime. And the other reason I chose Dallas, Texas, because I have so many lovely followers in Texas. And I thought, well, let's have a look at where this new moon is very specifically for you. And of course, if you happen to know a baby who's born around this time, you have a complete picture of what that horoscope will look like for him or her. So if we look for this new moon, 1 degree Aquarius, 33 minutes, it's in the 8th house of the horoscope. That's sort of around the 2 o'clock position in this chart. And what we can see straight off the bat is how close this new moon is to Pluto. In fact, a couple of days before, the 18th of January to be precise, there was a Sun-Pluto conjunction on the same day, almost at the same moment that Mercury turned direct. So we'll have a little more of a discussion on that shortly. The other things I want to show you about this chart, here we have a bowl configuration again, and I talked about this the last time because this is the way everything is shaped. The way we get a difference here is as the moon moves around the zodiac circle, as it does every 28 days, we start to see it stretching out a bit, and the moon becoming the handle, if you like, of this bowl shaping, or the spoon to the bowl, as I often call it. Not on this occasion, in this chart, no, everything is within the bowl. And if you're born with a bowl shaping, you have a lot to offer humanity. And a double whammy if you happen to be an Aquarian, or you've got moon in Aquarius or Aquarius rising, that idea of offering your experience and your gifts to the rest of the world is very much part of this bowl shaping. Now, what you can probably see also is Neptune's trident up there, perpendicular to the ascendant in Gemini. So we can see Neptune at 23 degrees of Pisces, exactly squaring this ascendant. That makes Neptune quite a dominant planet, at least in this configuration. We're going to see a lot more from Neptune as we get into early March. So we'll be talking about that maybe next month rather more than this one. But I am sort of reminded, and you know, some of you who are followers of my Friday Bite will know that I put Neptune's signature on COVID because I kept seeing when there were breakthroughs or when there were peak events, so to speak, Neptune was always involved. And I feel really with that virus, it's changed its shape, it morphed into other things. It has 120 kind of manifestations that in a funny kind of way, that's so reflective of Neptune. So I think, you know, around about this time, we are sort of seeing some new developments related to COVID. And I can't tell you exactly what they are because I'm not an immunologist or one, you know, I'm not a specialist in virology, but I suspect that we are going to be seeing some new variants or some other developments linked to the virus, and perhaps we're going to be seeing it already in this January period. So coming back to what's going on the 18th of January, Sun-Pluto conjunction, same day as Mercury turned direct. Sometimes we don't get everything happening on the day, on the time. It's around that time. Because remember, when you're doing astrology and we give an aspect 8 degrees of orb, that's effectively, when you're talking about the sun, 8 days. So 8 days reaching the exact aspect and 8 days departing from it. So the Sun-Pluto conjunction was at its most exact on the 18th, but of course it's still implicit in what's going on at this time and for the following 8 days, which takes us really to the end of January. So with Sun-Pluto, you get transformation, obviously, things that were one thing are now something else. Pluto makes things that are far away much closer, and it makes things that are teeny-weeny much bigger so that we can see them. So there is this sense of events of magnitude happening at this time, and we're understanding more about them. And so it is a time of revelations and transformations, and that's just happened prior to the new moon. So you'll have that in mind as we think about it. Uranus turning direct, I've already talked about. But on the 22nd of January, we have a Venus-Saturn conjunction. I think you can see in Aquarius there at about 1 o'clock, 1-ish, 2-ish on the horoscope wheel, Venus and Saturn are quite close together, and they are conjunct on the 22nd. So with Venus and Saturn, this is a very interesting combination because everything has a positive and negative effect and a whole tier of meanings, a whole variety of events and experiences and trends that we would associate with Venus and Saturn. But on the plus side, things get consolidated because Saturn is a great consolidator. Venus, of course, the principle of love, of money, of things to do with beauty, pleasure, all manner, peace, so things like that, the justice. These are all Venus's properties. So put them next to Saturn, you get consolidation, you get something constructive happening with those two. And for instance, it's not a bad thing to get married on a Venus-Saturn conjunction, because what you're doing is you are making a commitment to love and you're hoping it will last. And so Saturn lending its qualities of time to your union, in that way, a Venus-Saturn conjunction is appropriate. But of course, in a day-to-day way, and especially in a relationship, sometimes a Venus-Saturn conjunction can be a really depressing and difficult thing. And, you know, we often break up on a Venus-Saturn conjunction, or love goes cold on a Venus-Saturn conjunction. We see all the negatives. We look at through a glass, you know, a glass half empty, not a glass half full. So coming as it does in the wake of the new moon, we've got to take all these influences into consideration. So it remains a very powerful time. We've looked at the idea of breakthroughs. We've looked at the idea of conflict. We've looked at the idea of a celebration of the light. We've also looked now at either a constructive reality happening to all Venus principles, or a little bit of a sad, depressing moment. Now, just moving a little bit forward in time, just for your notebooks, on February the 4th, the Sun will be squaring Uranus. So really around the time we've got the Venus-Saturn conjunction, Uranus is turning stationary direct, we've now got the Sun approaching a 90-degree angle. So all things Uranus are a really, really strong storyline throughout January and into early February as well. So let's come back to me, and I'm going to take you through sign by sign now, so that you have some idea, you know, where this new moon is taking place. But remember, we are still working with the principles of Aquarius, which is a humanitarian pursuits, things to do with the brotherhood of man, one for all for one, collaboration, creative collaborations, breakthroughs, technological breakthroughs, scientific breakthroughs, but also breakdowns, organizations breaking down, law and order breaking down. So remember, we've got all those themes carrying through the new moon, which begins or starts its 2-week cycle on the 21st of February, and it goes right through to the full moon in early February, 14 days as the new moon, as the moon waxes to full. So let's start with Aquarius. And what does a new moon mean for you? Well, it's a supercharged new start. And it's personal. Whenever we're in our own sign, when we're in the first house of the horoscope, if you've got Aquarius rising, it's that new start. And it's about being personally responsible. It's getting behind things personally. And the first house, Aquarius, if it's your sun sign, it's also about your personal appearance as well. Who are you as you go out to the world? How does everybody see you? How do you present yourself? How do you do that? We express our personalities, we express our ideas, and the clothes we put on, the way our hair is styled or whatever, that's all our appearance. So you put a new moon in Aquarius and it's time for a new look. It's time to change your image, which is a good thing because it brings a new dimension out in you. And often, I believe, when we do things in the external world and we do things externally to our appearance, that sends a powerful message to our psyche and says, I'm ready to be renewed. I'm ready to do something new, to be a new part of myself. So that's the storyline that's going with this new moon in Aquarius. Also, I think what's important here is often, and I think you might find some signs more like this than others, but very often we don't get behind the things that we need to get behind. And there's a variety of reasons for that. It may be, our conflict in time. We've got lots of responsibilities. We've got people who perhaps don't want to join us on our new journey. All sorts of things hold us back from making new starts. Well, I think when you know that this new moon is happening on the 21st of January, and you know all the other things that are happening, Sun-Pluto conjunction, Uranus stationary direct, this screams to you, Aquarius, it's no use waiting anymore. You've got to grab change by the throat and get on with it. And this is a new beginning for many, many Aquarians. So if we come to the opposite sign now, Leo, all that sort of new moon energy is focused on relationships. So we've got a new beginning for a relationship. Now, again, let's look at the context that this new moon is happening in and further along in its 2-week cycle. We've got a Venus-Saturn conjunction in your opposite sign, right? In your relationship house. We've also got a Sun-Pluto conjunction, Mercury turning retrograde, all of it happening. So this is a really, really big and important period to do with relationships for you. Now, this may be that it is time to do something about a relationship. You're going to turn it into something different, whether it's a working relationship, a romantic relationship, whatever it might be. But there's another thing about this period of time linked to romantic relationships. Often people want to get through Christmas and New Year, a little way through January, before they confront something about a relationship. So it's around about this time that it gets confronted. So it may be that one person in the relationship, whether it's you or the other person, feels that this is not going to stand the test of time. Remember that Venus-Saturn conjunction? So it becomes a time when you rethink that relationship, and maybe there isn't any more life left in there. So around that time, lots of conversations about where are we going? Can we talk? There's going to be a lot of that going on around this new moon. Okay. Have an open mind for this, because for as many of you in perhaps a new romance, the idea that Venus-Saturn strengthens it and you go on to build a bigger relationship story, but others will feel they have come to the end of the road. And that's what that new moon is signaling. It's saying it's the end of a chapter, but the start of a new one. If we come to Taurus now, this new moon is happening in the 10th house. And the 10th house is very much where you're going in life, where your aims and ambitions are, your aspirations. And often this is linked to your job, your career, but also your role in life. And as I often say, we all have roles, don't we? We're a mum, we're a dad, we're a sister, whatever else we may be, we have a role. So this new moon says there's a new aspect of your role coming into play within that 2-week framework. That might be a new job. It may be a new situation in your job situation, and we'll leave that open, whatever it may be. Remember, Uranus is stationary direct, so there are going to be some announcements, some changes, and we've got a Venus-Saturn conjunction playing in there as well. So we're thinking too, does this mean that something I thought was going to happen is no longer going to happen job-wise, with something I've got planned for the future? This is now all change. Now, on my last video, I talked about my tips for the year, and one of them was adaptation. So we're not adaptation. It was more about accept and move forward. accept and advance. But it's about adjustment, really, rather than adaptation, or they're both the same in a way, in that instead of thinking about, I'm having to throw all of this away and start again, and now I'm in a hole because I don't know where I am, you want to think about, adapting to the new circumstances, making adjustments in your life, and that becomes less kind of in your face and dramatic. But there is new stuff coming into your life, Taurus, and it probably relates to your job. If we look at Scorpio, this new moon is happening at the base of your horoscope. So here we're thinking about things to do with home and family, the roots of life, which stretch back a lot longer than your immediate family. And we're also thinking of the foundations of the future. Now, this means you're building. So there's a new chapter coming in, which means there will be changes actually in more than one area of your life. But it all starts from ground zero, which for you is home and family. New moon might indicate a new home or a change of residency, maybe new people coming to live in your home environment. It may even be working from home, or a new system that has to do with the way, you think your life is evolving in some way. It's all tied up with the home space. There could also be maybe a new member of the family on the way. Maybe this is shortly before a birth, or maybe it's news of a new arrival, which is going to happen a little bit later on in the year. But I think if we want to embrace what a new moon is, we need to think about, our home. I mean, it's where we spend most of our time, really. It's our base, it's our sanctuary. And I think I talked about this on my last video as well, the idea when we take the decorations down, suddenly we start looking at, look at that crack in the wall. I didn't notice that before. And so it is a good time to make changes to your home base, because then you get a fresh feel. It doesn't have to be very much. It can be just, a cleanup and a change of where you put the furniture. But it can be bigger than that, with painting, decorating. It's a good thing to do in that 2-week phase, to give your base a whole new look. And that sets in motion, back to the psyche again, the idea, I'm ready for new things. So now if we come to our next group, the mutable group, we're going to start with Pisces. And Aquarius is a sign before yours. So it means that the new moon is taking place in the 12th house. So this is an area of great mystery. I call it the house of shadows, the 12th house. And to a certain extent, in your preceding sign, it's like it's hidden, isn't it? It's not come into your sign yet. And so we think of things that are a little bit not, out of radar. It's, we're not picking it up. And that can mean you're missing some messages. You've got the wrong end of the stick with some kind of situation. During the time the sun is moving through the 12th, maybe things will be hidden from you. But there's a reason for that. I mean, sometimes if we roar in there and try to deal with something, whether we want to make the most of an opportunity or whether we want to stop something happening, we spoil it, we make a mess of it. So really, not just on the new moon, but at this time, right through until the sun really comes into Pisces on around the 19th of February, you want to remember not to rush to judgment. You also need to be really replenishing the batteries. And that means taking rest, being a little bit more mindful of your overall health, physical health, mental health, spiritual health, and doing a lot to really nurture yourself on all those levels. Because by doing that, it's like a kind of preparation for when the sun comes into your own sign. But if we think about this new moon in particular, we think about new beginnings. Something is being seeded at this time, and it may be being seeded in your unconscious mind. So you're just getting the glimmerings of an idea. You're getting a feeling. It's not quite shaped yet. You're not quite sure what it is exactly, but you're just getting it. It's going to build in that waxing phase, and by the time we get the sun coming into Pisces, it's fully formed. It's a good idea, Pisces, to make notes. Make notes of your dreams. You know, if they don't make much sense, make a note of them. They might do later. And those random kind of intuitions or feelings that come to you. You know, I keep a notebook in the car and a pen, because often some of my best ideas and intuitions come when I'm driving, because I'm almost on automatic pilot, and they come flooding in. And with the sun in the 12th house, the new moon at this time, it's a really great time to make a note of those intuitions. Health also important, but I've just mentioned that. If we come to Virgo, the opposite sign, then we've got the new moon in the 6th house. And it's interesting at this time of year because a lot of people have been away for the holidays, or work hasn't really come back full tilt. It's in a bit of a kind of flunky phase. But it is around this time of the new moon that you begin to get a grip on things, and things that have been floating around, maybe as possibilities, as ideas, as maybes, they start to become realities. And in as much as, you know, I talked to Pisces about taking down, making little notes of intuitions and dreams, I think for you, it's also the organic development of ideas, of things particularly related to your work, but also to how your life functions in that 6th house. That's all about, well, I think in one of my year aheads, I called the 6th house the repair shop. That's where we get repaired. We kind of figure out what isn't working and what we put right, what system doesn't work properly, how can we correct it? And it's a good way to look at this idea of repair going on. And this new moon is like that, because it's also our physical body that might need repairing. It's our mental health that might need repairing. And there's our emotional and spiritual health as well. So this new moon is all about that. And yes, it might also indicate that there are changes within the way you work. It doesn't necessarily mean a new job so much as, you know, when I was looking at Taurus in the 10th house, we're looking more about the workplace itself, what changes are coming in there. And I mean, it could go further than that. And I would certainly recommend this new moon and its waxing cycle as an excellent time to network. We all need a network of people, whether it's in our home and daily life or whether it's in our work per se. We need that network, and that new moon is about feeding a new beginning in terms of your network. If we come now to Gemini, 9th house, well, the 9th house is all about far horizons. And far horizons are mental horizons, intellectual horizons, spiritual horizons, every bit as much as a place thousands of miles from you. So yes, this new moon could signal a journey. Is it a journey in miles? Is it a journey in consciousness, a journey in knowledge and experience? All of those things. That's a very positive thought. And I think, you know, when we often in January, we do start thinking about where are we going for a holiday, you know, this year, or we're planning business trips, or we're thinking about where we need to go to broaden our life and our experience. So this is a very good time to make a plan and to consider all the possibilities that are in there about traveling. I think too that this new moon, and we all need to do this at times, we need to examine our belief systems, don't we? I mean, we sometimes get stuck in them. You know, we don't really question our belief system, and perhaps we should. And so this new moon is a really, really good time to think about, why do I think that? Why do I believe that? And, you know, do I need some kind of other structure that's going to suit my beliefs, my knowledge, my experience, and all of that? It might also indicate the potential for working abroad, different zone, different state, different country, or the acquisition of a home or a home base far from home, which is rather a nice thought, I think, for a lot of people. And so we come to Sagittarius, and this new moon is in your third house. So we're quite localized in the third house. It's about our community. It's about what's close to home. If the ninth house is our big wide world, then the third house is our small world. What really matters to us, relates to us on a daily level, on a local level. So there could be some interesting news coming to you that's going to change some aspect of your world, some information. Is it an email? Is it a message? Is it something on a social media site? What is it? But something happens and you get some new thoughts. It starts you thinking in a new direction. Hey, why don't I do this? I never thought of doing that. It's also a little bit about the promotion of yourself and your ideas. So, of course, social media is a great place to explore your ideas. And if you've got a business or you've got some kind of something in your life that you want to promote, then that new moon in your third house gives you that opportunity to promote your brand and also really to speak your truth and to voice your ideas. That new moon and its new moon cycle, next 2 weeks, gives you an opportunity to do all of those kind of things. We also need to somehow freshen up our ideas, don't we? So it's a good time to take up a new study. It can be anything from learning how to make wine, learning how to drive, to actually going back to school or starting a university course or starting some kind of course. You know, we can get extra qualifications, extra knowledge, which will be really, really important to our future. And this new moon might be that stirring into consciousness of, hey, light bulb, why don't I do this? I need to do this. So it can be a great kind of light bulb moment around that time. If we come on to our cardinal group, and we'll start with Aries. Well, for you, this new moon is in the 11th house, because if you've got Aries rising or you are an Aries, then everything falls into place in its zodiac cycle as it should. So the 11th house is where you get together with other people. Often it's to do with kindred spirits. So it's about coming up with ideas, collaborations, and things that you do together. It can be social. You can get together for social reasons, or maybe there's something else you want to get together with people about because you've got a mission, you've got something you want to explore, and you're all kindred spirits and you want to do it together. But it can also be a new enterprise. It's a very enterprising area, the 11th house. So maybe you yourself come up with a new idea for business, or maybe someone will approach you and say, hey, does this sound like a good proposition to you? And so you start thinking in a new way, but it's not you solely anymore. And I know Aries is quite the pioneer and quite the solo warrior. You know, you like going it alone, very independent, very much in charge of your own ship. But working with others, having to be part of a group is a wonderful learning experience. And if it goes well and you can learn from it, you're stronger and better as a team than you are just on your own, Aries. And I think this new moon is all about getting team spirit. And actually, you can even bring team spirit into your one-on-one relationship, because when you work together as a team, you and your significant other, doesn't that relationship go better? So think team spirit, Aries, not just on the 21st of January in the new moon, but as you go through that waxing cycle. For you, Libra, this new moon is in your 5th house, the great creative center of your horoscope. So this is about the creation of new opportunities. It may be, of course, that you've been creating for a while and you're expecting to deliver. So, you know, when we think about the 5th house, we think of children, we think of babies, we think about pregnancy and new life. So maybe the new moon is a signal of all of that. Or it could be something to do with your existing offspring. There's a new development, a new chapter opening for one of your offspring. but it's your new moon in your 5th house, and it speaks directly to your inner child. And our inner child is a source of joy. If we can remember our joyful moments as a child, it was when we were fully engaged in play. And we need to engage that inner child in our lives, because that allows us to bring joy into our lives, and out of joy we create new things. It's quite a romantic area of the horoscope as well. This is where romance comes in. We meet new people, we start new romances, and this too has a gestation period. There'll be a birth at the end of it, whether you grow on to make that relationship stronger, bigger, better, or whether the birth is to a new independence. So these are things you need to think about at this particular new moon. But if a new project comes about and it's a creative project, it's for you to create something, then this is going to fill you with joy, because what's it doing? It's connecting to your inner child. And so to Cancer. Now, for you, Cancer, this new moon is taking place in the 8th house. Now, the 8th house is considered to be the house of financial exchange, but it's a little bit more than that. Because in a way, the 8th house, carrying on from the 7th house, which is all about partnerships, is what you receive from a partnership. And you can have a partnership with a business partner, you can have a partnership with a life partner, and you can have a partnership with banks and lending institutions, credit card companies, people like that, and money coming to you. So this new moon is about the shared kind of financial responsibilities you have. But in the case of a relationship, like a marriage or a live-in, love-in relationship, then it's also about what you get from a partner in terms of emotional and sexual satisfaction and the exchange in that area. So a new moon covers all those things. And it has to do, if you look at all the houses that I've just talked about, we talked about the 2nd house, or we come to the 2nd house, we talked about the 11th and the 5th. These 4 houses together, I call houses of survival, because in one way or another, they are central to our survival. Just like the 5th house is where we have children, and that's essential to the survival of the human race. So in the 8th house, our survival is, we need money to survive. We can't do without it. And in a relationship, you need an emotional and sexual exchange to allow the relationship to thrive and prosper. That's why this area is very important. So the new moon says, hey, there's something new here, a new financial agreement, a new sexual relationship, a new kind of era for you and a business partner or a life partner, in that you're going to bring something new to it. And it's all about sharing. It's all about the exchange, you giving to the other party and the other party giving back to you. But it's about new things. So new deals can be struck. Now, you know what, I'm like very proactive. And I think when we know where a new moon is or a full moon or whatever we're looking at, we want to embrace it. We want to think consciously about, how can I do this? How can I engage with this consciously? So when we look at the 8th house and a new moon, all these things that I've mentioned, you can engage with consciously and think about starting a new season, a new era even, and also looking out for the things that often happen as if by chance, that something new comes up in regard to financial relationships or emotional and sexual relationships. So last but not least, Capricorn, this new moon takes place in the 2nd house. And the 2nd house is also about material assets, but also it's about you. You are your own asset, your self-esteem, how people treat you, whether they're paying you for what you do, or they're in a relationship with you, or friends with you. How do they treat you? How do they value you? And it's a very telling area, because when we confidently negotiate a deal, or we go out into the world and we start a business and we do all sorts of second house activities, if we feel good about ourselves, we can usually negotiate better deals. And it also means that if we're feeling good about ourselves, it seems other people like us more. So, but it all starts with us. And a new moon for you, Capricorn, in this area is about rebooting your self-esteem. And it's about really looking at your value and toting up all the things that you know you have, you do, you are, that are things of value. And once you've listed them and you look at them, then you can start to feel, oh my goodness, have I got a few things that are of value? It's not like an affirmation, and I think affirmations are misunderstood. It's no good saying, I am full of value, because your unconscious mind says, no, you're not. So, but if you can actually cite things that make you of value, then that does boost your self-esteem. And of course, from there, when you're negotiating salary structures or a mortgage or whatever you may be doing in the second house, you're going to come out with a better deal. And yes, during the course of this new moon cycle, you may find that there is a new deal on the table. Maybe it is a rise in salary, or it's something that you're doing that will change your income in some way. But again, remember to consciously engage with this idea, because it's in doing that and using the cycle of the zodiac, if you like, full moon, new moon cycle in this case, to really take the opportunity when it's in a particular area of the horoscope to think about that area, think about how you actively can engage in it. And remember, a new moon is about a new start, it's about something new. So that takes me all the way through the zodiac. And it kind of really ties in a little bit with the whole idea of a new beginning. January, a new year, 2023, we're making a new beginning. But the funny thing is about this period of January, as we're getting to the new moon, it's often a time where we feel a little kind of, oh, I thought it would be different. I wanted this and that to happen. And now suddenly I've run out of steam. After 3 weeks of 2023, I've run out of steam. And, thinking about the idea of where we're at, that in January at this point, all the bills are coming in. So you can see how much you spent or you didn't spend at Christmas, and about the commitments that are forthcoming, whether it's fuel bills, energy bills, mortgages, everybody has bills going up. Tax has to be done at the end of January in many places in the world. So that's hard going. It's an assessment, and it's all about material things. It's not about the imagination. It's not about the heart. It's about the material world. And that made me think a little bit about, so often we think about our spiritual selves, and it's important to acknowledge we have a spiritual self, and we think spiritually about things. That's part of our whole makeup, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. And we are spiritual beings in a material world. And I think that's a key to remember. This world is ruled by Saturn, which is why you get all those tie-ups with the idea that the devil rules the world. Remember those images of Saturn as old Father Time, but also as the old guy with a sickle. And in fact, I think Liz Green, in her wonderful book on Saturn, has this title, A New Look at an Old Devil, because Saturn had associations with the devil. But Saturn rules us in a way by, we have, everything is accountable in this world, everything, including taxes, death and taxes, that's inevitable. It's also about time. And we can't change time. It's things we can't change. So in a way, when we say we're spiritual beings in a material world, the point is that we have to handle the material world. And that is as much a spiritual path as anything else. It's no good saying, oh, I don't care about money. I don't care about this or that. I'm in meditation. I'm going off to, commune with my guru. Well, that's all right. Yes, we should do those things. But did you pay the bill? It's just as important. And I think at this time of year, it really emphasizes this idea. And remember, in Aquarius, we talked about Saturn's rulership of Aquarius, and why all of this comes together in the idea of handling our material world, and that being just as much part of our spiritual journey as anything else. But it's not the final thing I want to leave you with. I think, again, it's this time of year, it can be a little bit depressing, and there's a lot going on in the world that isn't terribly nice. That when we think about the things that are going to make us happy, we think about that. Often we've got a thing that we know would make us happy. And I read somewhere that during the time everybody was in COVID, and it was such a hard time, and we came out of it and realized we have more freedom again, that people activated what they wanted to do in life. I want to move to Europe. I want to open an ice cream stall. And so they didn't think about it anymore. They wanted to embrace it because time is short. And that is part of figuring out what's going to make us happy. What are the steps we need to make us happy? And that's important to start working on that right away. Where is the route to that goal I want that will make me happy? Where do I start? What do I need? Let me start doing that. But also, I think the definition, you can figure out, kind of how happy you are when you look at your people you have in your life. How many people do you have in your life that support you, that love you, that are there for you? That's happiness too. And look, I have all of you out there who are so lovely to me. How could I ever have a miserable day in my life? So I'm going to say it again. Happy New Year. And I'll see you again in a couple of weeks. Bye for now.